Hi guys, welcome back to the Contented Plant. The time has finally come. My lightly variegated Monstera Albo cutting is big enough to transfer onto a moss pole, and my Monstera seedling is also big enough for a moss pole as well. So we are going to be doing that together today. They have just grown so much. This one has a huge aerial root coming off of it. And you can see all those roots that are starting to come down out of the bottom. So it's definitely time for a spring repot, and we are going to do that right now. So for the poles, I'm just gonna use these Coco Core plant support poles. They're not really truly moss poles because they're technically made out of tightly wrapped coco core. I've used these on my Rephotophora tetrasperma and I really like them. So I'm gonna go ahead and use these for my Monsteras as well. So they just have these little plastic wraps. The other thing I like about these is you can have them just as one support, or as your plant grows and gets taller, like they always seem to do, you can pop one right in the middle and make it much longer, which is really nice. So that pack came with these 2 poles, and then it has this twine that I will be using. I had plant Velcro, but for some reason I just can't seem to locate it. So I'm gonna have to try and find it or purchase another pack of the plant Velcro, because that is my favorite to attach plants to moss poles with. So first things first, this is the seedling that I grew from last summer. You can see it's got huge roots coming out everywhere. It's been putting down aerial roots. For some reason, it can't figure out where to put these ones. So it's actually kind of traveled its way up the leaf, and these aerial roots are going up. I'm assuming sometime they'll come down and try and search for the soil. This plant has been doing super well. It grows really nicely right here with that bright and direct light. However, you can see it's getting very tippy and top heavy. It's definitely getting really tippy. So as it keeps putting out new leaves and getting heavier and heavier, it is looking for that support. And I don't have any fenestrated leaves on this one yet. And I kind of suspect that's because it's not being supported well enough to climb. Oftentimes these Monsteras will put out those bigger, better fenestrated leaves if they are on a support and they can feel like they're being supported and they're climbing up like they would in nature. So we're gonna go ahead and put this one on a moss pole. This one, if you guys have been following along with my low variegation Monstera journey, you'll know this one is my current baby, and my goodness, it has just been putting out huge aerial roots everywhere. It's got another one coming from here. It has this one that went down into the soil. It's very happy. It's a very happy plant, but it's gonna be much happier on a moss pole. So just to catch you up really quick, this was the first leaf that it came with. You can see very low variegation. This one was the second leaf. It had more variegation and I was super excited about it. You can see it also tried to do its first little fenestration there. This was the third leaf. It has 1, 2, 3 fenestrations and that beautiful variegation, which I was very excited about. And this is leaf number 4, which I have not shown to you guys yet. This one just came out this last month. It had a little bit lower variegation, but I'm fine with that. It also has 4 fenestrations, so we're definitely moving in the right direction. So what we're gonna do is put this guy on a moss pole today as well and see how they do. So these are my pots that I'm gonna be using today. They have drainage holes on the bottom, and they are nice and large, and they will allow these plants to grow. They look pretty big, but they're actually only a couple inches bigger than the pots that I already have these guys in. This is an 8-inch pot, and I have them in 6-inch pots right now. Because I need to put a moss pole in the pot with them, I wanted to have a pot that was definitely on the larger side so that we could really stake this down in here and get a good amount of support. Now, something about Monsteras that's really interesting to note, especially if you're going to transfer it onto a moss pole, is Monsteras have a backside and they have a front side. So you can see it's so easy to tell on my seedling because it just naturally kind of grew that way. It's a lot more difficult on a cutting, so we're gonna go through that one together. You can see this one, it's very easy to see where the back side would be, right? It's right here where that stem's going up. And this is the back where the aerial roots are starting to come out from, and they want to anchor down onto something. So this front, where all the leaves are, this would obviously be the front side of the plant. So we're not gonna put the pole right there and anchor the leaves to it. That would be backwards. So the moss pole for this one is going to be right here on the back side of this stem. Now this one's gonna be a little bit trickier to find where the back is to this plant because it's a cutting. So you can see where this would normally be growing up, this cutting has been anchored down so that the nodes that grow the roots and the auxiliary bud are pointing up this way. So we obviously can see the back is kind of right here on this corner. And if I was to put it like that, then the leaves are gonna be facing outwards on the moss pole. It's gonna be interesting because the original leaf is sitting on that horizontal piece, so that one is automatically gonna be kind of tilted down, but we're gonna do the best we can. It's also tricky because we already have a bunch of aerial roots that I have to kind of maneuver that pole around, particularly with this one. This is why I love these clear pots. It's so easy to see the root structure on these. You can see this aerial root just went bam, right down from the side of the plant, just like it would in nature. It found the dirt and it has turned itself into a regular root. So if you follow that, you can see that it is now a regular root. There's the tip of it. It's growing really well and it's building this root structure off of itself. Whereas this aerial root is still trying to find the dirt, and it probably won't ever find it because it's too long for me to put in the pot right now. But this one's just gonna keep growing, and that's how Monsteras grow in nature. So when I'm moving this onto a moss pole, I'm gonna have to keep it in mind that this one is already basically a soil aerial root, and I'm gonna wanna keep that one in soil, which is gonna be a little tricky because it's already buried pretty far down in there. So we're gonna unpot this and see what we're working with here. Okay, so to bring this out of the pot, I am just gonna gently start squeezing the sides here, and we're gonna hope that it kind of falls out without me squishing the leaves or squishing the roots. It's really quite stuck in there. Okay, so I've thought about it a lot, and to avoid completely traumatizing my poor, beautiful plant, what I'm doing is just gently kind of getting a few of these roots loosened up, but I'm gonna leave it in the same kind of form that it's in right now. I am not gonna remove all of the soil from these roots. I just don't think it's necessary. The soil's in pretty good condition. I just repotted this a few months ago. So we're gonna leave it like this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to repot it with this moss pole kind of back here. And you can see there's an aerial root right here. And what I'm gonna do is try and just snug it right up to the side there. This is going to allow me to attach that main stem to the moss pole right here, which should allow this plant to feel that support from the moss pole and give us the benefits of having a supported Monstera. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna start filling up the new pot with some soil. Okay, for the soil, I'm gonna use my favorite aeroid mix, which is 60% potting mix, 20% perlite, and 20% orchid bark. I just mix them all together into a nice little mix. I will link these in my description box. The orchid bark has kind of been sold out for a while, so hopefully they restock that soon. This one happens to be my absolute favorite. So I just mix it around with my fingers until all of that soil is properly mixed, and you can pick up a handful and get some orchid bark in there, some perlite, and the potting mix. I like to use a peat-based potting mix for my aeroids. Okay, so these moss poles have this wooden stake that you see here, and I like to make sure that stake is touching the bottom of the plant, and then about this much of the pole is going to get buried underneath the dirt. These things can be really tippy if you don't bury them deep enough. So always make sure you have enough room in the pot that you can really bury this down in there. All right, after quite a bit of digging around, I ended up taking quite a bit of this dirt off of the roots as best as I could. I kind of had to leave the bottom alone because it was really caked in there. But what I have ended up doing is I've got the moss pole in the back here. I've got my plant right where I want it. And I was also able to stick that really long aerial root gently back down into the pot, which makes me happy because I've been really worried about snapping it. As they grow longer and longer, they become flexible, kind of like a rope, so you can kind of wrap them back in, and that will just grow roots now as well. So what I'm gonna do is just fill in around my plant and repot the entire thing back onto this pole. All right, I am so excited. I think it looks so good. So what we did here, this was this long aerial root that was sticking straight out, but it was flexible enough. I was able to wrap it back around in the pot. So now I have 2 of those aerial roots going down into the pot. I have it sitting right there on the back. You can see the 3rd aerial root is coming out there. And this wound up not being too bad. This leaf looks pretty good over here that I was worried about kind of winging off to the side. And you can see now we have the front facing leaves kind of out and around like this. Since this is our newest leaf, it will grow another leaf kind of up this way. And what I will do is keep anchoring them to the moss pole as they grow. So I very loosely attached it there with the twine, and I don't really even need to because this support is very sturdy. I have it down in that pot really far. I'm using a really deep pot, so I don't really have much concerns about this one wiggling around, which is so nice. I'm feeling really good about this. I'm really excited. So we will see how this one does. I think it's gonna do pretty well. I love it in this pot. I think it is so pretty. So that's the Albo. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing to my Monstera seedling. You can see it's got a lot more leaves. They're just a lot smaller because this is from a baby plant. All right, so I have taken quite a bit of dirt off of here. I'm not gonna take any more off because it's nice and squishy. There's really nothing in the center anymore. And I'm not trying to traumatize this poor little Monstera plant any more than I have to. So I'm just kind of letting it go at that. And I will fill up my new pot with the same soil mix that I used for the Monstera Albo. All right, so I have this in the pot and it is ready to attach to the pole. I wanted to address something really quick because this is kind of a common thing that I see. With Monsteras, it's really easy to bury these stems too deep. So if I was to bury these tiny leaf petioles here and have the dirt level sitting up here, or have the dirt level high enough that it is sitting above this leaf back here, that is going to rot the plant, and it's going to definitely rot those leaves off in particular. So make sure that those are free from dirt and they are not going to get rot from sitting down in that soil. So this one has an aerial root that's coming out the side here. So I still make sure that that soil is up underneath the level of that aerial root. That's kind of an easy way to tell that you haven't buried it too deep. So now this is firmly attached to that moss pole. Later on, as it grows, I will be attaching more stem onto it, but for now, we're just gonna start with that bottom attachment. It's secured very well into there. You can see it's got this new leaf that's going to be unfurling soon. I'll just keep an eye on it and add more ties as this plant ages and as it needs it. Okay, so we have the 2 really beautiful Monsteras put onto a moss pole. I'm so glad I have that project finally done. The Albo definitely needed it. I didn't realize it was quite so root bound, so I'm really glad we got that done before the growing season really hits. I think they're both gonna do really well on the moss pole. I will keep you guys updated on the growth progress, and I will keep doing updates specifically for this low variegation Monstera Albo, because I know a few of you are just as excited as I am to see how it progresses. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please comment down below. I'm really enjoying talking with you guys back and forth on the channel. If you haven't visited me on Instagram, you can check that out at The Contented Plant. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.